The Banking Royal Commission blew the lid off an industry in chaos. Today, the latest Royal Commission into the aged care sector began hearings in Adelaide. And it's not just money at stake, it's people's lives.
Residents having once been bathed in kerosene.
Did you feel gagged?
Yes, actually, but that's how it is when you're a public servant. You are gagged by the Act. You can't speak out publicly.
I think the country is going to have to brace itself for some difficult stories.
He was there on his own. It was like a prison.
Harrowing tales of abuse, overdoses and scandal from those who saw it firsthand.
How badly let down was Bob?
I can't express how
I don't think words can explain how badly he was let down, how badly we were let down as a family. For anyone to be put in that situation, that was just the lowest of low. No one should have to go through that.
Barbara Spriggs lost her husband Bob in the most inhumane circumstances. The 66-year-old Parkinson's sufferer was given 10 times the amount of his prescribed medication and had been left with unexplained bruises before his death in 2017.
Look, from over-medicating to over-restraining to isolation, it was appalling. But when you're told that's the only place there is for your father to go, you have to try and make do and try and find the good in it.
Today she gave an emotional witness account.
I can't believe that nobody else could pick up how bad that place was.
It took just days for Bob's health to deteriorate at Oakden, a now infamous home of horrors, where it's claimed residents were starved, neglected and abused. The elderly were routinely strapped to chairs for hours at a time. It's a shameful chapter in Australia's history and a major reason the Royal Commission was launched. Barbara and her son Clive battled for months to even be heard. They were the whistleblowers who gained media attention and exposed the Oakden affair.
Without you guys, we wouldn't have this here today.
Does your heart go out to the families?
Absolutely. You sat next to me. I found myself thinking, God, I'm going to cry, don't cry.
Annette Harridan previously worked in the Department of Health and Ageing.
Vulnerable people in our society deserve better. If this were a bunch of kids,
Children,
heads would roll.
She believes for too long patients have been the forgotten ones.
Where are the people who have committed abuses and got away with it? Why are there no charges being brought? Why is there not more serious investigation? In fact, that is what has not happened.
For too many years, aged care has been about profits and not people. But the Royal Commission is set to rock the $20 billion industry. It's been described as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to change the system.
The dominant narrative in current Australian culture seems to be that older Australians are a burden. We reject that narrative.
There will be a number of public hearings. In March, they'll focus on aged care for people in their own homes. In May, the almost 1 million Australians who'll be living with dementia by 2050. And later this year, the issue of young people with disabilities living in aged care. Like the so-called care Billy Aviolottis received. His distraught sisters recorded this vision where he appears to be choked.
I want to know that these people are in the right care and are being looked after the way they deserve to be looked after.
For suspicious children, quite often the only way to catch violent behaviour is on camera. Ada Celine's worst nightmare was realised when she saw this.
It's devastating and mentally I just don't sleep anymore.
Thousands of victims' families have written to the Royal Commission, including Melbourne woman Agatha.
I feel helpless, yeah. I feel helpless.
Her mum Giovanna was once strong and independent. Now the 85-year-old is fighting for her life.
They basically killed her, really.
3 months ago, she found her lying on the floor of her aged care home, screaming in pain.
So she was sitting there in the facility for, we don't know, maybe 4 days, maybe more, with a broken hip.
When she was finally taken to hospital, they also found a bed sore, which led to septicemia.
Not only did they not take good care of her, they put her in a life-threatening situation.
I think this Royal Commission can be the neutral umpire that we would then expect both government and opposition to, in a bipartisan way, adopt.
Today, the chief executive of advocacy organisation Councils on the Ageing also delivered his statement to the Commission. Ian Yates is pleading that funding be directed to consumers instead of providers.
So that poor providers are driven out not just by strong regulation, but because they no longer have any customers.
I want public servants and people who've had this experience, as Mrs Spriggs said today, to come forward and talk about the long, bad history of abuse, neglect.
These families are hoping the Commission will create a care sector Australians can be proud of.
And I just said to Clive today, look, you know, your dad would just be absolutely blown away to think that what he went through and what we went through as a family is now hopefully going to make some amazing changes. People have just got to come forward, haven't they?
Yeah, I think, you know, that this Royal Commission for Aged Care in Australia is such a great opportunity for Australia, and you know, this is time for people's voice to be heard.
For my mum, it's too late, as in, you know, there's nothing I can do now to go back. If I could have taken her out of there, but I don't want what happened to my mum to happen to anyone else.
The Royal Commission will conduct hearings all year across the country. A final report will be handed over by the Commissioner in April 2020.